Will robots take over our world? That's the question today. Welcome everyone who's joining us live for this session on YouTube on behalf of Digital Switzerland, where I'm going to talk with some of my expert colleagues about that topic. They are very knowledgeable on things like artificial intelligence, robotics, the usage. But yes, I'm the one who's going to ask the question, will Sarah Connor be safe in the upcoming future or not? And this is also where we're going to invite you to place your questions. If you want to join this discussion, just place your question into the chat of this video. You should see the chat bar on your right side of the screen right now, and we will see if we can put in the one or the other question. But as said, together, it's today not the part just like of me talking, so I will bring up the real experts, and it's now my pleasure to bring up the first speaker to the panel. Hi and welcome, Parveen. May you ask you for a short introduction.
Thank you, Frizo. Hello, everyone. Pleased to be here and very much looking forward to explore the truth behind the statement, whether robots will take over the world or not yet, perhaps.
Well, that's also where I'm very curious about, like, will the robots take over? Second speaker I'm going to bring up on stage, who will also contribute to this interesting discussion, is Gerrit. Hi, Gerrit.
Hi, yeah, Gerrit Viola from Atos, Germany, supporting here. And yes, I'm working in AI, do development in AI in manufacturing. And yeah, we're happy about that to introduce it and discuss it with you here.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction, Gerrit. One that is really knowledgeable about artificial intelligence, about algorithms, and what we can do is a colleague of mine based here in Austria. Gerard, may I ask you also for a short introduction?
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here. My name is Gerard, sitting in the wonderful city of Vienna, and I'm really keen on to talk around the future of us and AI today.
That's so perfect. Looking ahead. And last but not least, also a colleague where I'm going to talk a little bit about ethics and other topics we should be concerned of or not is Jens. Jens, welcome you on stage. Hi.
Hi everyone, Jens here. I'm an expert sales in artificial intelligence and big data in Atos.
Wow, that's so perfect. Thank you. That's the panel of today. As mentioned, if you're interested and want to put up a question to our panelists today, just put them in the conversation, into the chat. We'll try to cover them. But let us begin with the initial statement. And that's really something I would like to know. Will robots take over our world? If I look at that little robot here and I'm saying, no, that's too tiny. It cannot do anything. It cannot harm us. So Parveen, what do you think about that?
Interesting question, Frizo. Robots, huh? So I think the answer to this question lies in the detail. You know, when you talk about robots, it is important to understand that what kind of robots are you talking about? Are you talking about mechanical robots being used in mechanical engineering, mechanical industry? Especially we have seen in automotive industry, fixing the screws and bolts in the cars. Are you talking about the process robots, which is also called as bots, where we are automating the certain part of the business processes with the software programming and technologies being used? Are you talking about the chatbots, which I think everybody is very familiar with? Interesting fact: in 2021, I think everybody is talking more to robots, chatbots, than their spouses or partners. So, are you talking about chatbots, or are you talking about more cognitive robots, which are capable of visualize things and perform certain actions by looking out these different things by themselves, by understanding the overall context of the environment? So as I am talking about the technology behind used by these kind of different kind of robots, the spectrum is really very broad, and some of the technologies are already quite mature, especially with the recent developments in the last couple of years, and we have already realized their success. But on the other side, there are certain technologies being, let's say, used in certain of these different types of robots, which are not yet that mature, and yet not seeing the real potential and practical use of such a technologies. So it's very important to uh, distinguish between the fiction and the practical usage of this world robots, so, but answering your questions, whether it can take over the world or not, perhaps not yet, I believe.
Oh, yeah, by you saying not yet. So what does the yet mean? So you're saying like it's about the use, it's about like they are the one that are not that mature. I'm always having like those stories, and whenever I have like bots and the bots that create like their own feelings and all that, normally in the movies they just take over the world, no matter how the plot goes. So how will it evolve if you see not yet? So in the near future.
When you refer to the movies, I think you might have also seen then people traveling in the time machine, many centuries, many centuries, which even beyond goes in our dreams, you can think, or our visualization. So maybe when I mention not yet, maybe not at least in the current scope of years that we can dream of, at least a couple of decades at least.
Okay, well, yeah, that calms me down a little bit, but it's really the question: should we be scared? And when you talk about the future, I'm still waiting for my ordered hoverboard. It didn't arrive in time, so I saw it in the movie. It should be there by now. So it's just like maybe we are not fast enough to cope up with the video stories that were created, and just like having the time amount will do it. But robots are different things. You already mentioned a different understanding on what a robot is. Is it a chatbot? Is it like a bot in a manufacturing plant? Is it a cobot? Is it something that was like announced now a couple of weeks ago, like a personal assistant in a way? What are bots playing for a role in communities? Well, that's another question I would like to know. And also in the future, and maybe Jens, I can forward that question to you. Is that fine for you to tackle that one? So what are the roles of bots?
I can well remember the 80s when I first read about real robots being introduced in manufacturing shop floors. And I was kind of disappointed since these robots didn't look like I was expecting. I was thinking about C3PO and more humankind robots, and these stupid robots did all the stupid thing again and again and again. They screw the screw, that's it. But at the end of the day, it was the first real-time robot I have seen. Um, when we talk about robots these days, I think it's all about automation. We have heard from Paveen about cognitive, so which is about speech recognition. We can actually communicate with robots. We have robots who can make their own decisions based on certain criteria. And referring to the early 80s with this kind of stupid robots, I think a lot of development has been done.
Well, I get that point. It's interesting. Maybe Parveen, you want to add on that, because I saw you already, and I think that's also a question. Why are we always making bot with human faces? Because yeah, we reflect on that. That's what I've seen right now. I just saw you, and what's your point on that, Parveen?
That's interesting one, because it's the same point that I would like to make, because ultimately our inspiration for creating robots is while looking at the humankind. We are more or less with this technology or with this mechanical aspects, we are trying to mimic the human capabilities. And when we say human capabilities, ultimately what we are looking for, the capability of vision, to see something, to recognize something, so that we can act. For example, ICR, OCR kind of capabilities. When we say ICR, intelligent character recognition, optical character recognition, image and video analysis, kind of things. The second one could be perhaps the capabilities to execute certain actions, as Jens just mentioned. There are more, for example, capabilities of communicating with human, or let's say human workforce, or
Right.
the humankind, with the with the chatbot kind of capabilities. And the most important, or let's say the most advanced one, would be the capability of thinking and learning. Ultimately, where we can deploy the deep learning, machine learning kind of capabilities, which basically where software programs ultimately can think and learn from the data feeds that we are giving them to. So
Right.
ultimately, at the behind the lines, it's none other than simple software programs plugged in some other capabilities like mechanical capabilities to apply these and leverage these technological components.
That's perfect. And sorry, I just brought up the wrong question, but the participants are coming in. So we have a question right to the topic from Frank about automation. What percentage of repetitive tasks are automated? Is there something we can say? It's like, where are we at the current point? Thank you for the question, by the way, Frank.
Yeah. Maybe I'll take that question. So in general, as part of one of the recent study being performed, in general setup of our day-to-day work, there's a approximation of up to 50% of our daily tasks that we do has the potential to be automated, starting from the performing the triaging of different tasks, giving them priorities on a daily basis before starting our work on a day-to-day business setup, or whether we have to predict the detailed insights based on the data feeds that we are getting from different sources. But on a on a very very high level, there's a study being performed that makes that approximately 50% of the work that we do has the potential to be automated.
Okay. Well, still, that brings me to the point. That means like you don't need 50% of what I'm doing or my daily routines and all that, by the way. So if I don't have to be scared by the robot itself with just like killing me, changing the future, all those horror scenarios, will I still have a job? Just like a short one on that?
Maybe Gerald, you want
Yeah,
to
I'm
take this one?
Yeah, sure.
fine. Yeah, please it over, Gerald.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the tricky questions, I guess, because all we hear around AI, around automation is, are we going to losing our jobs? And I'm pretty sure, no, we are not going to lose our jobs. The question is always how to prepare ourselves then for the future. And
Right.
one thing we really see and we clearly see is around augmentation. So AI will help us, will support us. So like we are using our smartphone, the face recognition every day. So this is part of our daily life. We are using AI to help us to unlock our smartphone. And I think this will also relevant for a lot of business use cases that AI will help employees, will help people to go further in the processes to work on some use cases, but AI will not replace them. And I think that this is the question of how we can prepare for that and how we can prepare for using AI as part of our daily business, our daily lives. And if we can manage that, then I think we're on a good way. And this doesn't mean, and I think talking to the guys is always, do I need to be a machine learning expert then or a data scientist? The clear answer is no. There's no need for that. It's just to understand what AI is capable of and how to use it best then.
You can think, Frizo, you can think of this very same aspect. Think about it. If we get an opportunity to free 50% of my time, how would I like to utilize that 50% of my time? Am I right? So if I get a 50% time with the help of different tools, and let's say smart assistant that I can have on my machine who does my work, perhaps I'll think about work or the activities where I can basically use my more cognitive capacities or cognitive capabilities, the capability of do some critical thinking, which is
Right.
not easy to translate to a particular bots or robots, perhaps.
Okay, so it is more about like really changing the mindset that it frees my time, that I can concentrate on other topics which are important, or could do 50% travel and leisure time and enjoy it, whatever. If I have my bot in place, okay, that's an interesting way. So artificial intelligence will change. It will have a bigger impact on how we are dealing with different topics, and we see that artificial intelligence is already right now in so many different spaces being more and more active and like part of algorithms and not just part of the bots what we think about that. But it's the other thing what I would like to know, and maybe This is what I can ask to you, Garrett, is on the other hand, how can I prepare myself for artificial intelligence, for those robots, being it just like that I have vacation time, or on the other hand, like maybe, how can I get it done? Garrett, please.
Depends if there's a user of AI in a daily business,
Right.
he should be aware about that there is a machine in front of him or her that helps the user to make good decisions. That means not that the machine leaves the responsibility, but that the machine has the full responsibility on the decisions. As we heard before, we have 50% of the day's task can be automated. Yeah, and
Right.
we heard also there is AI can help in recognition, situations, images, objects, and so on. And in a later stage, AI should be, that is the actual point of the development, should be helpful in decision support. That means cognitive decision support. That means reasoning, as Parvin said, reasoning the things. And that is a part that should never left up to a machine, even if it is critical.
Okay.
It depends on the use case. It depends on the impact. It is a risk-oriented process. We have to prepare what is the risk behind the decision, to leave the decision only up to the machine or to do the user in the loop. That is important. Yeah, that is the thing that we have to be aware of. And where does it help? Where does AI help us? AI helps our customers today to make their domain, to make themselves the domain that they are working in for years, where they got blind, they do many tasks by routine, and to get more aware about what they are doing. If we dig in the data and see what the processes are flowing in process analytics and so on, and process optimization, we show up the customer how the customer works today. And the customer or the user of AI can make aware about AI itself if he remembers how he's working, so that it makes AI in the first beginning explainable. Yeah?
Well,
Yes.
I understand that. So you also talking about like algorithms and like programming it and making decisions. And we got in a question on that, which is quite interesting. Anne-Marie asked is like, how do we address the responsibility of decision making through AI? Because on the one hand, I understood it's pretty much rule-based. I tell the bot what to do, the algorithm what to do. But at the end, we always heard like machine learning, deep learning. So the algorithms learn and they make decisions. Right now, we're talking about like supporting and making recommendations and maybe not decisions. But how is it that? Is it as she also saying, is a slowing down point of AI and robots development? Because how do we go with that? Who wants to take over the responsibility?
If you can make decisions, you can make decisions quicker. If you support by AI tasks that are routine, sorting something, but leave more time for the more critical decisions to the user. That means high automation helps by AI also helps to save time. To get all the data and all the information one needs, that is provided also by a prediction of an AI model to the user, that he can think about it. Is that really true, the algorithm, the AI model is saying? That helps us. If you have a high grade of automation, and leave the critical, and you save time, and then you have more critical time for the critical decision.
Just to
Right,
add to this very
please,
aspect,
Praveen,
Frizo,
go on.
means I
Yeah,
think
sure.
regarding the responsibility also, it also depends upon the use case that we are trying to, let's say, solve here with the help of AI technologies. Because as I was mentioning initially, the spectrum is very broad. Am I right? Depending upon the use case, to what level of standardization it is already in the current form, whether it's already very standard, it is dealing with the digital processes, digital data already. Perhaps the AI and development of, let's say, AI use cases in such environment is not at all slow. It is very fast, because everything is already have thought through, human has already thought through that where they need a human intervention, where they don't need it. What is the risk management process? What are the secure data security and confidentiality processes while addressing or working in these kind of areas? However, as we start going and away from this standard format, let's say partial standard, semi-structured format of data, partial digital environment, then the kind of controls that we need to put in place to deal such a kind of environment is getting more and more, let's say, complex, strict, and more sophisticated, as we can say so. So it's all depend upon the fitment of the solution or the problem that you are trying to solve here. What I
Right.
believe.
Yeah, well, I do get the point. I do get the point on that. But on the other, still, just like maybe digging a little deeper. Yeah, if we say we teach a robot an algorithm, and the bot is learning, the bot is training. Initially, I plan pretty much, and just like I also approve the decision the bot made itself. If we think about evolvement of the bots, like iteration 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, then if we start an algorithm right now and in 5 years, it's making a decision if I get, let's stay on that horror scheme anymore. If I get like a hospital treatment or not, or a certain treatment, something happens, where's the responsibility on that? It's really, who can take that right now? I'm looking to you, Jens, because we were talking about like ethics and also the decision-making process. Is that something where we say where we need to have a rule set of decision-making and responsibility and for the future?
I think so. I think we definitely need common understanding of ethical environments. When you're referring to medical care, we can collect all kind of information about a patient, which will likely include the kind of blood and the blood group A, B, 0, and so on. And if there is a relationship between the predicted success of a treatment, of a care, it might impact doctors' decision, but it shouldn't be the case, since it's kind of discrimination when we treat people different based on their historical data. And this is
Right.
exactly the critical point we have covered here now.
I say I have to add something. You mentioned the 5 years, the runtime of the usage of an algorithm. Um, we develop today AI algorithm that may change doing the accuracy of the decisioning because of the changing environment. Actually, we are the climate. We have the climate and change in the environment. There is changes on the market. There is popularity of different products, and also in manufacturing machines and so on. And that is different information that change over time. That means also answering the question before, how do we prepare in addition to the ethics stuff? We have to keep in mind that no AI model is a meltdown in iron forever. That means the
Right.
world changes and we have to change and retrain the models. And maybe if the retraining is not enough, we have re-event the AI models. Because the KPIs that we normally need to develop an AI model may change. They may be totally put out of sight over time. That
Sure.
means we have today developed an AI model, and we have developed cognitive decision support, maybe by constraint programming. And tomorrow there is a solution that does the same with genetic algorithms in a shorter time, because of a better computing hardware. You will move that solution to another approach. That is the intrinsic change of the possibilities. Yes. And also answering if we do so have some time savings, yes, also for the cognitive decision support, constraint propagation can save time. 2 months of time planning, timetabling for projects can be done in 2 days. Yes, but the future looks for real-time answers. And maybe that will be possible one day. We look forward to quantum computing. Yeah, there are many
Yeah.
changes up front.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my addition.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect, but it brings us back. It's about like very knowledgeable people, and that's
Indeed.
also where another question is coming in. And sorry, Gal, just in a second. Also, do we need to change the way of like primary education? Is it really because now everyone is looking into AI? Everyone wants to become a data scientist, and oh, what's the topic? Oh, it's AI and it's machine learning and deep learning. Do we need to change that? What do we see? Is there how can we also support a curriculum on that? Are we already at that far a point where we can say, hey, students of the next 2 years need to learn that because it's so fast running? What's your take on that? Short, Garrett, and then I'm going to take over to you, Gerald, if that's fine for you, because I know you have a clear point, like also like on education and how to get knowledgeable on that topic.
This is a question. My personal opinion maybe differ to the mainstream, but
Right.
if I look to the children today, they are working with smartphones, with computers, and playing games. They sit in front of AI, yeah. And what is a little bit missing is to describe and feel the world like it really is. If they are too close attached to AI solutions, and they are today in the TV, computers, smartphones, as I said before, I think there is a big risk. I think I think AI is a tool in the first instance, nothing more. The way our children describe the world is on algorithms that are millions and millions of years old, and you will not change that kind of knowledge gathering that the human beings have by using the AI algorithm. At the end of the
Okay.
day, is it the human kind that trains the AI model? Yeah. At the end of the day, you need 18 years to make children ready for visiting universities. You will not get that with an AI algorithm in a few minutes. Yeah.
All
That
right,
is the
right.
point.
Fair point. But on the other hand, it's like right now there are self-learning and taking the mobile phone and whatever, and just like adapting to the current situations. So we need to support in the future. So it's like how it is trained, and maybe we need to just like change it and get faster in the way people can absorb information. I see you nodding, and Gerald, sorry, I want to reflect on you. What's your take on this?
Yeah, as I also have kids, so I'm in the middle of this discussion also with my kids. And
Right.
I think important here is, and it's not just AI or machine learning or all this data stuff. I think in general, kids need to get guidance, to need guidance into the digital world to understand on, for example, how I can use the internet in the right way. How can I get the difference between fake news and real news, and all these things is where I think our kids are overwhelmed with information, with WhatsApp, with Facebook, with internet, and they need guidance how to use it best. And I think also, as Garrett said, AI is just a tool if you bring it down to the point. So I think it's important for them to understand what's happening. What's happening if I'm using my smartphone with face recognition or speech recognition. So I think that there needs to be a guidance for the kids to get their understanding what's happening. I think they don't need to get machine learning experts or to get software engineers or programmers. I think that's not needed here. But I think they need a basic understanding on what's happening behind the scenes. And if I'm taking my kids, so what we have bought, I think 2 years back, is now a kind of a small robot. So it's really easy stuff for the kids, but a little bit to bring them closer to technology on how this robot is working with his sensors and all the things he has. It's really interesting for kids, and they learn really on playing around with that, on how technology works and how to bring all these things together. And I think this needs to be part of the education to bring the kids this guidance on how to deal with all this.
Yeah.
Gerald, I did hide my dog. So the thing where I say where AI can support children in learning is maybe to verify if the lectures that are created today by lecturers are in a good shape that they can be consumed by human beings. Think about the chunks of information that will be provided to children. Think about the automatic generation of contents, more graphical, more textual. We have different kinds of learners,
Right.
classes of learners, and AI can help the way the information can be consumed by our children. That is something that if it is consumed, that depends on the children.
Yeah, and this is sorry, where I need to bring in another question, and by Chris, good points. But who can and should teach that? It's like Gerald, you brought the example. Oh, we just bought that robot, so you made the decision of buying the robot and teaching also what you know. It's like as we are all in a phase, it's like right now it also changes how we deal with tech, how our kids deal with tech, how fast they start teaching us how to deal with tech, but it's really about teaching. Who could do that? It's like also Chris saying, kids sometimes know more about the technology, and also my kid, and they're very young, just like, hey, daddy, you see, this is working like that. And we know there's the joke saying like, you can't teach a little kid something like that, but if you give him a mobile phone for 70 seconds, it opened 3 apps and changed your language with no way. So how to teach them at an early stage, or also keep some sort of a governance, like not just teach, but let them be secure and safe in a way.
In Germany, we have special domains to study that is called media computer science, where the computer science has especially the focus how to provide information, how to bring to use multi-channels to bring information closer. I think that disciplines has been in future closely aligned with the studies of and the education of the future lecturers. That we need, and then the governance has to invest in that things that these disciplines work closer together. I think that is a big part of each digitalization program of the European countries.
Okay, good point.
Just to add to
Parveen,
this
yeah.
aspect, Frizo, miss, I think this is our, the way I see it is, it's our collective, let's say, responsibility. At home as a parents, we have this responsibility. Yes, it's true that we are not let's say digital fluent with all this conversant of the technologies, but as initially Jens and Gerald was mentioning, and also Garrett, that ultimately it's all not just AI, it's overall the digital advancement of the technologies. And
Sure.
we need to be, we at home, it's our responsibility as parents, same for me, applicable for me, at in organization where we work with different work, let's say age group workforce, that there also we have the responsibility. And of course, as a governmental, there's the responsibility of policymakers. And I believe one of the actions that we see today, we are having this kind of a session with Digital Switzerland, and one of the primary goal of such a, let's say, such a platform is to basically equip everyone in a, let's say, a general public, let's say, to understand more and better about these technologies, the way technologies are evolving, so that we can make better and informed decision around us, at home, at workplace, at outside, and make a better society overall.
Right. That makes sense. I have to refer back on that because I was like, yeah, with the horror scenarios and all that. But AI is also positive. I mean, we wouldn't go and emphasize so much on artificial intelligence if there wouldn't be something positive. But before we go into the topic, Gerald, I have to ask you again, is it an option to really think about like those simple bots to co-learn with the kids, for example? Because I think right now, if you start playing around with a bot, and I did it by myself, so these are just like, the technical bricks, to name it right, where you can play around with that. But I learned as much, I think, as the kids. So is it something, it's a co-learning? And what would be a suggestion where you say, if you want to start with that and with the bots, look for that and that topic so you can learn, because you know the topic by heart. Since years you are in investigating in artificial intelligence, data mining processes, image recognition, and all those things. For you, it's just like daily business. Yeah. But for me, it's like if my kid starts, oh, I want to have a robot. In my childhood, the only robot you could have was the one that could shoot out a cannon. And the other one was like where you were pretty much amazed if you could radio control it. Done. Technique done. Yeah. There was no brain or something like that. But what's the thing on that? A positive thing you could take away for starting with robotic AI and maybe with a playful approach?
Yeah. I mean, you said it yourself now at the end. So it's playful approach or a gamification. I mean that the robot I showed to you, it's really around gaming. So it's not around programming this little thing and driving around the house. So it's really a playing game. You have missions you have to accomplish. You have also you can shoot with this thing. So there are a lot of things which is really funny for the kid. And it really learns on a gamification-based approach on how to deal with that and how to write small programs. Because for this little thing, it can drive around, recognize things, can also listen to voices and understand what's happening in the surrounding. So a lot of things are happening, but it's really based on a game. So that the kid is just playing around and saying, oh, really cool. He can recognize my voice and understand what I'm saying. So it's not that the kid understands, okay, there is AI behind or what's really going on here, but he understands, okay, I can communicate with the thing. And this is where at least my kids are really interested in saying, okay, why is it understanding myself? How is it working? And this is where I think we have this spot now 2 years. So at the beginning was just a game, using the tablet, clicking some buttons, and this thing is going around in the house. Now we're at the stage that this thing is really using image recognition, voice recognition to do things. So this is also where the kids really advance from just playing around, driving this thing like just having a remote control. It wasn't nothing more than that at the beginning.
Right.
Now we are really on using this little robot for different purposes and really having fun with that. And this is also where I learned myself, to be honest, the last 2 years, how kids learn to deal with a robot. So it's a kind of co-learning of kids and parents on this, I think, reflecting also the question before. I think it's not that easy to bring this really to kids, to educate kids on that, because I think I'm good dad, but still I wasn't used to how to educate my kids with this new digital world and then with this new AI and bots and all these things. And this was also learning for myself how I can educate my kid and then bring this to my kids that they have fun, but on the other hand that they are kind of prepared what's coming the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Well, that's perfect. And it's also what's now taken up in the chat as I just like follow it. We're talking about like reverse coaching and like that co-teaching that you learn yourself by teaching something else to somebody else with that great new topic, which is an absolute way of thought and really just like learning yourself and enjoying it. Still, it has a big eye. And there was also a point that we say, how could a robot be adequately like designed in a way, but the algorithm, it doesn't have any face, an algorithm is just running. But that's a pretty interesting thing and a concept of really just like learning by teaching, yeah? And sometimes your kid will come up and say, hey, I've now done that and that and that function, because they adapt so fast in different topics. And even my small kids they can order everything on those little devices, which sound pretty much like Alexandra, but you name it, you know it. I just don't want to have a machine activated by some of our active participants. But we have spoken a bit like about play learning, a little bot and that. But artificial intelligence and bots, they already had severe effects and positive effects on different topics. So I would like to bring up the question that is like, where is artificial intelligence already making a positive impact? And maybe just like not kids enjoy it, olders enjoy it to learn and teach. Who wants to take that? Jens, can I take it to you? Just a short thought, and then I will move on to Gerrit right away. Just like a thing on positive impacts on AI. What do you think?
I can remember many positive impacts. Once we helped to reduce the manufacturing time in the airplane manufacturing process, it's a huge cost-saving thing. And probably the one which is emotionally most attached to my work is once we were dealing with police departments, discussing picture recognition in order to identify pedophile pictures.
Okay.
You help actually to make it a better world once you support the police to find criminals. That really feels good.
Okay. So also the case itself should have a stronger meaning. That is not just like, did you say, oh, cool algorithm, positive impact, it makes it faster. it makes it just like saves time, but it's also like the meaning of what it does also adds on the value, on the impact. That's something you say,
It enabled something
right?
which wasn't possible without AI.
Yeah, okay. Got that point. Another thing that was possible now with AI and HPC, high performance computing, and that is now we save the riddle of 42. But that's not the topic of today. Garrett, what is your take on this? Positive impacts on artificial intelligence, and how far? Just like some examples.
As Jens says, the support in the manufacturing and also so for example, not during manufacturing in automating the way we do things, we create things, but also predict what is the outcome of that work. That means the predictive quality management. That is something we did in German companies to predict from the data, from the sensor data they use, what is the quality that is coming outside. And that is a positive result. That means there is no waste, there is less environmental pollution because much more of the materials they use to build the products can be used and have not been recycled. And that's one point. And one point in private use is, for example, the AI-supported detection of flowers, of trees, maybe also mushrooms. That helps to reduce risk for private consumers. If they go to the woods and pick up mushrooms, they know, oh, that's the right one, that I will not get hurt if I start to eat it. That helps in the daily business. And besides that, it does not cost jobs. Yeah.
Right. Pretty interesting. And yeah, in regards of those personal apps you could use that are counting things because they understand what objects are, what form they have. A very important app there I saw is like where you have those type of things you can put together. And it just like recognizes the image and tells you even what you can build out of them. That's a nice one. But another topic, and Rolf made the comment on that, is also autonomous vehicles. So that has like changed a lot. And now there are so many algorithms in the car making a lot of decisions, warning, doing on that. That's also something positive. How do you see that? Is that something we can also see that the future will go there in a stronger way, in a positive, more positive things right now? Who wants to take that one? Everyone is now looking because, autonomous car, what is the thought? I'm just playing that over to you, Parveen, because I know playing around with autonomous vehicles, autonomous driving, decision-making, and that's something also by where you're interested in.
No, that is very true. Definitely, there's a huge research going on, and we are making quite a good strides in that area of autonomous vehicles. And as you can imagine, means the way means overall policymakers, governmental and organizations are thinking of leveraging these technologies in enabling the mobility, increasing the mobility in a very green, decarbonized way, especially, and thinking of this as one of the potential solution of getting rid of huge traffic jams in huge cities. So that's definitely, there's a huge potential, means tremendous amount of let's say benefits, green benefit, I can say so, that we can associated with these technologies. So definitely, I'm very much, let's say, excited about this developments that's happening. Though we, as that on one side, the technology advancements are going on, there are certain risks are all definitely associated with these developments, and we need to balance those risks or mitigate those risks before, let's say, bringing these technologies directly on our our streets, our roads, where general public is walking.
Right. Well, that's the thing we have to be sure. You also mentioned decarbonization. That's also like, I think also Raphael put on that question about green IT. Now, like artificial intelligence, we know, or we think we know, I'm not sure, is consuming a lot of compute power, because I always hear like either you can have a graphic card, they are sold because of Bitcoin mining and all that, or they are sold because of whatever artificial intelligence, but from a normal gaming, they are not there. Decarbonization, you mentioned a positive effect. So some of the models are calculating already and supporting on decarbonization. But on the other hand, well, how does it play together? The algorithms, the compute power, and high performance computing, which is not part of our today's session, but it's where do we have the fit?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Means this link, the balance between computing power and the amount of heat generated because of computing power on the
Right.
other side algorithm. But I consider this is a bit more technical problem rather than the conceptual problem of the capabilities of these technologies. So it's now challenge for us as a humankind to find or develop the servers which is which dissipate less and let's say heat because of the executing the computing power, rather than thinking, or let's say not even thinking of using those technologies for the usage of green IT, for example. I'll give you an example. So we did a project with one of the governmental institution where basically we are using AI to segregate the different kind of waste by using the image recognition associated, image recognition technology. So basically, if it's a metal that we can think of, it's a uh, biodegradable waste, then we can segregate, and all those this. If it's a plastic, we can segregate on all those topics. So think about if a human have to do this segregation by themselves, and then think of running the processing of recycling by itself. It's almost impossible. Am I right? Especially with the rate we are generating the waste.
I think
Yeah,
in addition,
perfect. Yeah. Please, Garrett. And I think also, Gerald, you wanted to say controversial is starting up, so that's quite interesting. Please give me your points on that. I think it's key. It's important.
In addition, I'd like to add, it is also up to us that we create AI, how we rely on standards. In the most cases today, AI is developed on company level. AI models are developed with aspects, with common sense, with some union aspects. For example, if you do a model for a car, for a special car, there are standard parts within the cars, and in the AI models are also trained the recognition for the standard parts. I think our responsibility from the AI business is to define standards, to put some object models that belong to standard parts in the public domain, to save time, to not rely on retraining the models again, to fetch them from public domain libraries. For example, the standard parts for screws, for nails, and for nuts and bolts and something like that. You can fetch today that data from public CAD databases. And I think we can do a very good part to decarbonization, to reduce the compute time by providing such models into the public domain as well.
Okay,
You have
interesting.
not
Interesting
redo the
point.
things. You must not redo the things that somebody has done before. And what we do in Atos is we do R&D on synthetic data. That means that we do approaches or have solutions that we can take CAD data and create AI models from it, from standard parts, from special parts, so that the customer does not model the complete product, but only the aspect that comes from the customer, and the parts that are provided by different manufacturers that are standard parts like screws and so on, that can be trained in addition and can be reduced, and normally they can be put in the public domain. It
Okay,
saves
so it's
time
like
and
also
energy.
making data accessible. Gerald, sorry, you also wanted to take that part. I thought like, okay, you will have the complete opposite way of thinking about decarbonization, compute power, and artificial intelligence. But please, also your points, and then we will go, because also some questions come in on regards of ethics, and I think we also would need to tackle this. But decarbonization, now a big topic. What model or what role can AI play in there?
Yeah, maybe to add a few on that point, because I think Pavin and Garrett already said anything, a lot of things I also wanted to say.
Okay.
But for me, also important, and looking into decarbonization. I mean, the question is always where does the emissions are coming from, and looking to two big drivers of these CO2 emissions. One is clearly mobility, or everything which is on the street. And here taking autonomous driving, as it was mentioned before, I think this is a huge possibility for us to decarbonize our mobility. Because if I can just take autonomous cars maybe in 20 years ahead, that we just need 10% of the cars which are right now on the street, because no one is really owning a car anymore. We just pick up a car or order a car if we need one, and some car is coming to us and picking us up and driving us somewhere, and then it's again we don't need it anymore. So I think there's a huge lever of really using AI as part or as driver for decarbonization. I think mobility is one part. Second thing, which is also I think around 20 to 25% of CO2 emissions today, is around buildings. So if I manage it to make buildings smart, efficient, then I can also reduce a huge amount of CO2 emissions in the future. And I think these are already two levers which will help us to decarbonize and then to really bring us into the future. And part of all this is using data and finally also using AI for making this possible. I think therefore I think we're in the middle of what's needed for bringing the future to us.
So it's really also like on starting to learn, and that those models can learn fast and have play around with different models and see what's possible in that, and also bringing the long-term goal and seeing really, if we think about usage of cars, it's maybe not that efficient anymore because we might in the future not own a car, which would be great. Otherwise now 4 people are driving to the same meeting with 4 cars, just like take a lot of place. So it's not maybe no direct impact, but indirect impact of what we could learn out of that or how we could control a center. Still, there will be then the discussion if it's like scope 1, 2, 3, into what ESGs it will play, but that's another discussion we make. But we're talking now quite a bit about car, and that's also what brings me now to another topic. And Jens, we need to talk about that. Cars. We have heard cars are now autonomously driving. We have read in the news that some cars are just like created accidents. And there are like, whatever, artificial intelligence algorithms making decision in a special situation of who's going to die, which is part of an ethical discussion, how to train a model on a decision, what to do in a way like that, and also the responsibility. That's just an example.
It is a good example. I think it's an example everyone is discussing. It's like a triage we heard about during the pandemic crisis. What is the value for one single young guy compared with a bunch of old people? You know, it's hard to answer that. But at the end of the day, we have to keep in mind that the algorithm is fed by humans.
Right.
Yeah, the information comes in, and I'd like to give you one example, still sticking to the car story. Cars and sensors in it are able to measure the level to see whether the surface is even or not. And therefore, it is possible with an IoT connection to see whether a car is parked maybe near the woods, the engine has stopped, but the car is still shaking. Is that an information you would like to spread around? Probably not. The sensor makes complete sense, but the information and how to use the information is critical. And therefore, we should think not only about the law, what is allowed, what is legal and what is not, but further, what is ethical and not ethical, and the information about the shaking car. You know, nobody is against the law doing that kind of thing which makes the car shaking, but probably we don't want our neighbors to know about it, and therefore really think about it. Make your minds where personal information is coming into the consideration. Some people might think the car doesn't know who am I. But probably yes, because depending on your driving behavior, depending on the seat, the electrical seat, and the position you are using your steering wheel and this kind of information, they might figure out who is using the car and so who is doing the wild thing near the woods. And this is just one example. I could find many more. During the pandemic crisis, companies start to measure temperature of their employees. not critical at all. But once I store the historical information day by day by day by day, it becomes critical. And thinking about face recognition, I can easily identify the employees. And therefore, the borderline between legal and unmoral
Right.
or unethical is kind of fuzzy.
Yeah, that's right. Also, Chris brought in, it's like predictive policing. That's something. Also on image recognition, now what we have heard with the mobile phone provider, checking images on each and every device itself. Yeah, that's also something about like how is it changing? How is artificial intelligence and some ethical decisions in influencing my life, if I want to or not? Just like maybe it is, what if I have a phone like that and have a picture of my kid standing in the shower? Yeah, what decision will the algorithm do? Yeah. These are things we have to discuss, but also on a legal way. What you mentioned, will legal decisions be made in a certain way in sometimes? But what else is there on like ethics and trustworthiness and robustness? So how can we ensure that we are not creating the best algorithms ever, and then just like policing everything down what we just like and have on Earth? To make
It
it
means
simple.
to me also that we when we create AI based on former decisions, that means from the data that was derived from former decisions, we have to be careful and we have to be sorrowful that we do not let the algorithm learn from wrong decisions. I see here the question that asked how we can use artificial intelligence to improve the lawmaking, for example. And I
Right.
think about the lawmaking done in the past that inherits a little bit of racism. Where it was not the crime that leads to a judgment, but maybe the color of the people and so on, and that there's wrong statistics that is based on wrong politics on racism issues. And I think we have to be careful when we use data to derive AI from it, and we have to to consider the data very, very critical. And what can help in situation where the data gives an unbalanced situation? Yeah, that means there's maybe in one country in the world, it's said more crime is done by purple people, for example, not to say, and the reality says it is gray ones, not to get some real colors. And what we can do is we can do the data exploration on the real capabilities, on the real KPIs that have to be considered. And if the situation in the former law speaking is unbalanced, we can rebalance it by using synthetic data, because it is the crime itself and not the hair color and the skin color of someone that leads to a decision. Yeah.
Okay. So it is like what has been done, and coming back now, because I think now that there were already over 58 intense minutes and questions are coming in. But you mentioned a point which I just want to bring up, and it's like let's avoid minority report type of predictive AI. We know, Jens, we discussed about a solution that is in place that can predict violent behavior already right now, and then somehow predicts if something might occur. Yeah. But on the other hand, you see synthetical data, so taking everything out that might have or might lead to wrong decisions. That's what you're seeing, Jared. So taking out skin color, that I'm from the Netherlands, that whatever my childhood was like that, I lived there and that, but just like on the impact or the insult that was taking place. Is that right? You say that, Garrett?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, perfect. Another thing, how can we avoid minority type reports? So coming back into the horror scenario where somebody is standing in front of a screen and predicting that whatever, poor Friso in the studio in Vienna will not be there tomorrow morning, which I would like still, if that's possible, please tell me. I would just like then go. What's your take, and also your takeaway on AI, and will robots take over the world? or the algorithms or the machines or not? Maybe I can ask you, Parveen, on your take on this for a short wrap up.
So as a wrap up statement perspective, so even let's say even there's a slightest chance of 2%, 1% or 3% that robots may take over the world, I rather want to stay a bit more optimistic and focus about the 96 or 97% of the places where this technology can be leveraged for the overall betterment of society by leveraging the advancements this technology can bring for improving our society overall. So that's what my final take towards this technology is.
Thank you so much. That's great. I will hand over directly to you, Gerald. What's your take and your takeaway in regards of Minority Report, algorithm, and playful robots for the future?
So my takeaways, so clearly what will not happen the next at least 10 years, that AI will take over the world. So I'm pretty sure around that one. But I think a lot of smart people are working on the topic around regulation, around being careful about going into the right direction. And then those are the discussion that they showed us already. I think the awareness is there that AI needs to be somehow regulated, needs to be taken care of. And I think that's happening. And so I'm really optimistic that we have now technology which will help us as mankind for the next 20, 50, 100 years to still be able to live on this earth.
Okay, thank you so much. So I have two things. The one is like 96%, the world will not be taken over. The 3 or 4% will do. From no, it will not be taken over. So it's also the question to you, Jens, will robots take over the world? And if not, what's the takeaway?
I strongly believe that robots won't take over the world, since they will be fed by humans with all the information, and therefore I don't see critical issues here. But I see other critical issues with the use of artificial intelligence and with the power of AI, which we see nowadays already. And since we're talking about education, I believe that education is key. It's not about how to program an algorithm, it's about the possibilities which are possible. So it's not good enough if kids can remember, once I touch the sunflower, I can access my pictures. But the question is, where is my picture stored? Is it on my device? Is it in the cloud? Once it is in the cloud, I don't have access to it, or I can control the wider spread of my picture, and what could be done by picture recognition and AI. And therefore, I think since it arrived already into our real world, people should know what the ability about AI is.
Thank you so much. So I have a third opinion where you don't want to scope on concrete numbers, but fair plays anywhere. Totally right with that. Garrett, last but not least, what about the robots? I'm still scared somehow that this machine will soon start to do whatever I don't want it to.
At the moment, my dog will take over the world here.
Okay.
Don't see him. But I think AI can help us, will not take over the world, but it will help us in prevent that other phenomena and processes will take over the world and make lives harder than it is today. The climatic change, decarbonization is a domain where we find solutions where AI can help. And yes, I'm looking forward. We take care about we should take care about to use AI right in the right direction. And yes, that's something I can hope. And that is something we can live in the daily business. Yes.
Thank you. So it's just like it is in our hands. That's really what we have to say. We can still control it. We can still lead the way, the path, and make the base for ethical decisions, law decisions, algorithm decisions, and how the algorithms or AI could support us and robots can support us. It was a pleasure that you were all in the session with me today. And thank you also for the participants who were joining us. That was so inspiring. Still, when I go home tonight, I will see that nobody will say, I'll be back. We will be back with another session as soon as you want to. Thank you all for being with us. Thank you, Praveen. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Gerhard. Thank you, Jens, and also Gerrit. And I would just also like to thank you, everyone who was there with us today for this great session. If you still have some questions, feel free to ask them. We're going to review this recording on a periodical basis, and you can also contact us on the social media channels. Thank you, everyone, for your time. It was great that you were here with us. Have a great one. Bye-bye.